Hey everybody, today we're going to make some pasties. And if you've ever been to Butte, Montana, you know the pasties are big there. And everything I know about Irish culture, I learned in Butte. And that's actually not a joke. And this one comes from one of Butte's own, Maureen Mansfield, who was the wife of Mike Mansfield, the Montana senator. She grew up in Butte, and I'm not certain about her parents, but I know his parents were Irish immigrants. So that adds some authenticity to this recipe that is sorely lacking, because I know I'm part Irish, but I just can't figure out which part. So I'm going to put the recipe down below, and of course I'm going to put the best way to get a hold of me down below as well, because remember, I'm never too busy for your real estate referrals. Let's make some pasties.
Let's get this party started by making a dough. First, you're going to sift your flour, baking powder, and salt into a bowl like this before adding your cut up butter. It said you could use 1/3 of a cup or 1/2 of a cup. Of course I went for the bigger size, which is 1/2 a cup, which is a whole stick of butter, because the more butter the better it'll come out. And here I'm just cutting this into the dough, and you'll probably see off to the side the pie dish there with the just mangled filling that I have. That's because I tried making this pie dough first in a different way that I thought was following the recipe more to a T, and it just fell apart on me. I think my problem was that I did not add enough water. So that brings us to our next step, where we want to add our water to the dough. It says you want about a quarter cup. I ended up using closer to 1/2 of a cup because I did realize that even though it might toughen up this dough a little bit more, this is holding about 1 pound of meat and potatoes and rutabaga and onions. So you want it to be hefty, and you want to be able to hold up to all that filling. So here you add in your water, and then once you get that into a ball, you can just start kneading it out. And the first time too, I think I was careful about over kneading. I didn't want it to be tough, like I said, but don't worry, just make sure it's really solid before you start rolling it out. So this makes 2 pasties, so you're going to want to split that in half as best you can and get your surface all floured up before rolling that out. I rolled my dough out to about 10 or 11 inches, so that way it would comfortably sit into a pie dish, so that we'd have plenty of room to put in your filling and fold it over. Of course though, you don't want it to go too large and too thin, then it might not be able to hold all the weight of your filling. Use your rolling pin, it is your friend when handling a delicate dough like this. And put in your filling like I did here. Of course, I didn't quite do it by the book. It was all a mess after the first one fell apart, but it worked out just fine. It came out great. Get your filling in and cinch your pie dough together at the edges so that way nothing falls out as it's baking. And I just transferred this to a bigger pie dish for the baking part, because I realized I also could not fit 2 pasties in there. Once you get your pasties both done, you're going to want to add a slit like I did here. Of course, it's going to help release air, and you can pour in some warm water as you go, so that way it doesn't dry out too much. Pop these 2 into your oven at 400 degrees for 45 minutes. And I did add the water like this every 15 minutes, and it worked out great. This is how they looked after 45 minutes, nice and golden brown on the top. And then I turned it down to 350 and put it in for 15 more minutes, and it turned out great. Look at that. And of course, if you want to make some gravy to add on top, that's always a good idea, but make sure you pair it with your favorite Irish stout. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and I hope you have a happy St. Patrick's Day. Thanks for watching, everybody.